Hey, how you doing? It's Patrick Lovell, Truth Bomb riffing on Friday, June 23rd, 2023 at 12:48 p.m. my time. I like that. June 23rd on 2023. As good of time as any to sort of capitulate, reorient, reconfigure the nature of the moment, which is unbelievably significant. So, this week I demonstrated what is possible by way of a podcast that was really basically bare bones, just as standard as it gets in terms of production value, but in terms of content, in terms of the actual information, I dare say it's as profound and important as anything that I have heard from really anyone or anywhere, particularly on platforms such as mainstream media, um, over the course of, I don't know, maybe ever. We did an interview with William K. Black and Michael Hudson, and both revealed elements of what's behind the curtain and how corruption works and how finance is in control and exactly what happens A plus B equals C in a way that is easy to understand, but at the same time is monumentally larger than anything that you will ever see on Rachel Maddow or Tucker Carlson or Anderson Cooper or really anybody anywhere under any circumstances. Because what I am forced to do is bring to bear the information that I have access to and that I've been working on for literally nonstop for at least in this area 6 years. It's more like 10 years, but it's 6 years. I frequently cite that it's been 13 years in my journey, in my quest, in my understanding of the original question I asked, which was, this doesn't make sense. And that was as a result of the 2008 great financial crisis and what I found myself in the midst of after a career of success where suddenly my life was turned upside down, inside out by an entire economy that went completely kaboom. And it wasn't until was able to put together all the pieces and the ingredients of this massive puzzle that I fully understood what it was that we are. We're a corrupt society. We're run by an insanely diabolical racketeering conspiracy of mammoth proportions by a very tiny subset of the population, which emanates from finance, most notably. But it definitely incorporates fossil fuel. There's a lot of it with military industrial contractors and other elements of society, but as goes finance, as goes the direction of the economy. And it's ridiculous to try to have to win people over that this is what's behind the curtain. Considering everybody out there, no matter what stripe or ideology or color or race or creed, everybody knows the system's corrupt and everybody uses that as a standalone, but nobody knows who's doing what, when, and how, and who did what to get away with what, and what created the system that we have, except for the information that I'm providing you. And so, I've been on this quest, to try to create a populist movement, a tidal wave populist crusade to purge corruption. And, we've, I don't know, gotten some terrific people to be on board to help us out, but we need more, monumentally more. And I've got this, I think, a clever platform that, is requesting $13 from people to invest in a massive movement to purge corruption. And I would like you to think of it as a presidential campaign. But it's really a campaign to purge the duopoly and the presidential campaign and everything else that's not talking about this, including media that has completely betrayed us all. I'm frequently, reminded of those characters in The Matrix, which were the, robots, which they refer to as the machines that were basically there to suck the life out of humanity. Literally, that's what media is doing. And you can't see the forest for the trees in the Borg that's behind the system. And so everybody is completely in disarray. And you wind up with this like almost upheaval of confused, angry people that don't know who to blame. So they're able to be manipulated. And that's my causality of corruption burrs and fuels fascism. And that's unacceptable to me. I'm sure it's unacceptable to millions of you, but you don't understand how it works. And so many of us just put our heads in the sand because maybe we have a job, maybe we're surviving, maybe we can get through this. And we look around and like, what's the problem? But meanwhile, you see homeless people, in staggering numbers, and you might like, okay, what the fuck is wrong with those people? A lot of them have massive problems that could probably be helped in a system that made sense. But what you don't understand are the mechanics of corruption. We have a crisis of clarity, which is what I'm trying to elevate so that I can create revelation, enlightenment into the tens of millions of people to need to understand exactly what's going on. Now, I've already done that in our prolific work in the con that's going away. The $29 trillion truth of the largest criminal conspiracy and cover up in history that has all of the details and it's completely bulletproof. The system and the Borg was able to defeat us. We couldn't work through the system to get to the millions of people that need to see it, to use a market-based solution that suddenly Americans are enlightened and say, no way are we going to stand for this corruption. You would think in a normal American society that I grew up in, that would be, given the truth, what the outcome would be. But no, that's not what happened. There's all sorts of manners or forms of ways that they could sabotage us. Who's they? The financial system. They have control over everything. Algorithms, again, the Borg, the machine, everything that could suck the life of liberty and justice for all out of the millions of people that don't know what's going on. And so the only way we can get there is, I got to present this information consistently in a really competitive way. And I'm asking you to consider investing $13 in this crusade to purge corruption so that we can get the truth to the American people and hire the right people to A, do the right editing, and B, the algorithm sort of mechanics and the experts that have far superior intellect as it comes to that sort of activity, because I don't know how to work around the algos. Not yet, at least. And I know that there's people out there who can, but they don't do this work for free. Yeah, it's a capitalist system. People have to get paid. You want to blame capitalism? Well, then understand that it's financial fraud and terrorism that's behind all this stuff, which is all griftopia and illegal activity. And no, the law is not equal. No, the law isn't accountable to power. That's called corruption, and corruption births fascism. So we have to elevate this above to the tens of millions of people that need to hear it. And I also have hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of hours of evidence in everything you could possibly imagine. But the only thing I can do to work around the Borg is to go directly to the American people, which again requires money. I'm only requesting $13 in honor of the original 13 colonies that were up against it in their era that achieved the inconceivable by defeating the most powerful empire of their time, the United Kingdom. Great Britain, King George III, the Redcoats, and of course the East India Trading Company. That's what we've evolved into. We have a new feudalism, but it's worse than that because it's all built around the mechanics of fraud. I frequently say we live in a corporate fascist state undergirded by a criminal syndicate that literally uses socialism to backstop and guarantee with the full faith and credit of the United States, a mafiocracy. That's what we are. Organized crime. That's what we are, literally. I can give you, and I have, detail after detail after detail every single day. What just happened this last week? We saw Epstein's involvement in intersection with the $290 million settlement from Chase and Jamie Dimon and everything that elicits. That's one piece of the puzzle. It's a big piece of the puzzle, but that's in addition to everything else that I've got, right? So, look, if you, me, and everyone you see who isn't a Nazi, who believes in decency and dignity, integrity and liberty and sustainability, if we come together and we merge in unity, we will defeat the misery of tyranny. That's the American way. That's what we have to do. I'm trying to usher in a clean new deal. If I had 13 million Americans contribute $13, I'd have a $169 million war chest. To do what? Go in my pocket so I can go hang out in Malibu and have a yacht so that orcas can attack my stern or hull. I thought that was kind of interesting, all of those yachts being attacked by orcas, and orcas my favorite animal, by the way. They are the wolves of the sea, and my last name is Wolf, i.e. El Lobo. Look, I'm riffing, man, because the bottom line is people, I have the answers that can turn this stuff right side up and inside it out, and we can purge corruption. It's a tiny cabal of people. It is a massive conspiracy, but the problem is nobody understands the mechanics, and I have to provide those mechanics. We have a crisis of clarity, and I'm providing the mechanics of corruption. I can do it. I've spent millions and millions of dollars to be able to get into a position where I know where everybody is and where all the bodies are buried. Does that make me walk on water and part the Red Sea? No, but I certainly hope it's enough to inspire you to fight for life, liberty, and justice for all. What's wrong with you? Why would you put your head in the sand when you've got your head in the sand and you want to pretend like all of this isn't happening and it's going to go away? You forgot what's going on with your backside, which is right up in the air for them to plow corruption, in a way that is just, I guess it's funny, in a sick way. I mean, It's not rocket science. It's racketeering. We have laws, we have remedies, we have ways to be able to handle financial terrorism, but you have to have accountability. And I was just on the phone with a colleague and a friend and somebody who I have a great admiration for because he's almost in the exact same boat I am. A gentleman by the name of Bruce Jacobs, who's a fabulously terrific defense attorney out of South Florida who's been going toe-to-toe with the frickin' Florida bar and corruption in the courts for the last 13 years, and he's last man standing, and they're just destroying his life when he's got the truth. When he's got the truth of massive, massive criminal engineering in the courts using documentation fraud, which, oh yeah, by the way, Lawrence Tribe on Lawrence O'Donnell is talking about in the case of Judge Cannon as it relates to, of course, everybody's favorite focal point, Donald Trump. But yes, what they're concerned about with regards to Judge Cannon is happening in millions of scenarios. And same with, of course, Rachel Maddow, who was like trying to dig into the Department of Justice this past week because it's like they're not acting fast enough on what Rachel Maddow thinks she created criminal referrals for as it relates to documentation fraud with the electoral certifications that were, parallel with the January 6th insurrection. And she's not wrong. But again, she's looking at this. What I'm talking about has got millions and millions and millions of cases and tens of millions of illegal documentation fraud, and we got access to 2 billion elements of destroyed documents by Bank of America that are able to get away with this because the governor of Florida, Ron DeSantis, has got this general counsel in his AG's office who went through the revolving door, who came out of Rick Scott's, Attorney General's office, and then went to become the general counsel of Lender Processing Service, who did millions of documentation fraud to illegally bury millions of people. And then he went right back into the judiciary in Florida to handpick the Supreme Court justices and the appellate courts that are basically bringing down corruption on the one guy that's got the truth, Bruce Jacobs. That's another piece of this whole thing. And where does the money come from? Well, the money came from the Federal Reserve providing $29 trillion in quantitative easing for the last 13 years to be able to provide the criminal apparatus trillions of dollars to destroy millions of Americans. And what are you doing? I'm not asking you to pick up a musket. I'm not asking you to come with me to Wall Street and rip these guys out of their freaking Ivy League, their offices, or go into the Capitol and pull the reign of terror like the French did. What I'm asking you to consider is a $13 one-time investment, and you tell 13 people and so on until we get to the people, because I can blast through all of this shit like fucking Marshawn Lynch blasting through a defensive line en route to the fucking Super Bowl sort of thing. The bottom line is you gotta fight for it. You gotta want it. You gotta own it. And you can't sit down and pretend that corruption is gonna get solved without we, the people, fighting for it. You get the justice you deserve. And I have the details. And it's not about me. If you and me come together, we the people. Hey, I'd like to apologize for yelling and getting pissed off, but my fucking country's at stake. Why aren't you? If you sit on your ass and you let this happen, where fucking Nazis go and demonstrate in front of Disney World, and Ron DeSantis is trying to create what? A fucking suppress a woke revolution so that what? We don't know about his corruption that should throw his ass in jail and remove every of the illegal freaking justices in the Supreme Court. Have you not seen what's happened recently in the United States Supreme Court? Every single day, there's another revelation, whether it's billionaires dealing with, like, for example, Clarence Thomas or Judge Alito and Paul Singer and the hedge fund and all of that. The corruption is out of control. And what I have proved to you time and again that you don't understand is that we unleashed 29 trillion. There's 1,000 billion and a trillion in 2009 illegally backdoored from the Federal Reserve to Wall Street to basically guarantee a racketeering enterprise that destroyed north of 100 million people. There's nothing like this in history. And all of the other things, whether it's, the corruption in prison industrial complex, military industrial complex, all of the stuff that's going on, the fight for, being able to be sustainable on a planet because of our fossil fuel dependence, and all of the other calamity that comes with it, it's all tied to the same thing. You have to have an ambition to want to create a clean new deal, but you can't just rock around in disarray and say the problem is that the system is rigged and somebody else is going to fix it. They haven't. They won't. Not one presidential candidate understands the details of corruption. You know how I know? Because I'm engaged and I'm trying to get them to get there. But I can tell you, the thing about politicians is they like to speak in platitudes because they're trying to serve everybody at the same time, and they're not trying to get to the details of actually how to fix this fucking madness because everybody's got to get their money from somewhere. We have spent millions of dollars to get to this point. If 347,000 of you came in at $13 a piece, you'd match my contribution in what I was able to achieve to be able to bring all of this information forthwith. That's what we're talking about. 347,000 of you. Come on, can I get 347,000 of you? I'd be happy if we started with 2,000. That get us on first base so I can get organized, so I can get the podcast, so I can continue the messaging, so I can do this thing by the book, so we have a 501c4 and I pay for people to do stuff. That's very important. That's how this whole thing works, man. And the bottom line is, if you're not paying for something in this society, unfortunately, that's the way it is. That's the Supreme Court. They ruled that with Citizens United. You're the product. How many of you don't know that? It's all a lie. It's all a lie to make you basically be a part of the system. And a very, very tiny fraction of you, quite frankly, in context, this whole system works for. Hey, congratulations to you if you've gotten to a point in life where you've made all the right decisions, where you've had money, where the system actually fuels you, all of your assets have gone through the roof, whether it's stocks, whether it's your real estate and that sort of thing. Good for you. Unless, of course, you're one of these hedge fund managers or asset managers or private equity or any number of scenarios within the financial system that use all sorts of manners or tricks and everything else using the full faith and credit of the United States to fuel a casino, late stage capitalism. We're dead. We're fucking dead. Free markets could work with the accountability of the law. Look, I've said more than I wanted to say. It's been a while since I've dropped one of these truth bombs. Failure is not an option. Rise, roar, revolt, onwards and upwards.